You're listening to Inside Real Estate with Irv Tremblay on Newstalk 980.
Irv, thanks for holding over the break. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Dave.
We were talking a bit about the for sale by owners. We're going to focus in on this. There are issues, there are problems that plague the for sale by owners, unbeknownst to them in many cases. The major one, exposure. And we touched on that to begin with. With the MLS system, as opposed to just a straight web-based system of a generic sort, sure. I use the phrase economics 101. It is about supply and demand and the ability to create that demand. Let's focus in a bit on that.
Sure. Well, it's all about getting to the now buyer. And let's talk, before the break we were talking about an auction and creating an auction. Very, very difficult to do that as a private seller because you don't get to the best buyers. A private seller's website is no different than, or their sign, no different than my sign, no different than my website. Now, we're not talking about the MLS system. Let's just talk about websites or signs.
Okay.
Or if I put an ad in the paper. There is no difference the calls I get versus they get. 4% of the people that call me can buy. So if you're a private seller and you have 100 people go through your house on Sunday afternoon, 4 can buy a house, not necessarily do they like yours.
Yeah.
11% aren't qualified. 15% are traditionally spring lookers. They go out every spring, as soon as the weather gets nice, and they look, but they don't buy. 70% have a house to sell. I get call after call after call. Oh, I love that house of yours on ABC Street, and I want to go out and see it at 2 o'clock. Well, that's great. As a private seller, you're going to open the door and welcome them in. You have no idea if they're qualified. And it's not about numbers. It's about numbers of qualified buyers. So most private sellers don't ask probing questions. They're not trained to. They're afraid to. So they just say, come on over. They wouldn't say that if they thought about, number one, security.
Yeah.
Number two, only 4 out of 100 could buy. They wouldn't open their door at all. But they don't really know that because most of the people that have given them advice to sell privately just give that free advice. And we all know what free advice is like. So they don't get to the best buyers, and that really is the problem. So how can you get an auction effect when you don't have anybody at the auction that actually could write the check, put up their hand, and then go and write the check? They might put up their hand, and at the end of the auction, they have to slink out because they can't pay.
They can't clear it, yeah.
So in the MLS system, you're getting to, let's say, 400 agents. And of those 400 agents, let's say those agents have a minimum of 4 or 5 buyers. It's a lot of buyers. And the difference is an agent's buyer is going to be ready and willing because they've taken that phone call. They've turned that not now buyer into a buyer by listing the house, getting it sold, sending them to the bank, getting pre-qualified, getting rid of the spring lookers. They, experienced agents know how to do that. And so they have the best buyers. And that's how you get the auction effect. And it's supply and demand at that auction. So that's how you're going to get the most amount of money. That's how you're going to net more money after you pay me. Because there'd be no point in ever hiring me or paying me unless there was value and I could net more money. And that's what we do every day. And let me give you an example. In a 3-week period, and I challenge any for sale by owner that can call me and tell me they've had this kind of success. And I'm not the only agent that's had this kind of success in the last 3 weeks. I sold a house in Berkovich Crescent. Listed it Friday, sold it Sunday, 3 offers on the property, and sold it for more than asking price.
Wow. That's a good weekend.
in a 3-day period. Okay? Then we go to a house in the Northwest on 3rd Avenue. We list the property, and again, I want those for sale by owners to call me. And not only did we sell it, we sold these properties for top market value. List the property, And first day on the market, we get 2 offers. Unfortunately, the successful buyer didn't follow through with the sale in a couple days. It fell apart. Now, if that happened to a private seller, how long would it take him to attract another buyer to the property? And they probably, at that price, wouldn't get multiple offers. It was because of that auction effect and being in a big arena of buyers. Deal fell apart in the morning. I get on the phone, call all the agents, because that's where the buyers are, resurrect another offer in the afternoon, and it's sold. Tell me a private seller that could do that. Or if they had the problem of it falling apart, could they call their website provider and them get them the buyers? Could they call their lawyer? Could they call their friend to give them the advice to be private? Of course they couldn't. They would be stuck and pretty disappointed. And maybe they went out and bought another house in the meantime. Then we go to a house in Albert Street on Queen Street. We listed for a week, multiple offers. Now those are 3 properties in a 3-week period where we got multiple offers, sold the property for top market value. And here's an example. The house I sold on Queen Street, they were a private seller. They didn't get any action. Not only did they get action when they listed with me and on the MLS system, they got top dollar. They sold their property for full price.
Netting out more after they pay you. Well, they didn't get anything because they couldn't sell it up front by themselves anyway.
That's what it's all about.
I think it's trying to make sure that for sale by owners, people who are trying to sell their own homes, that they see the value in hiring a top real estate agent, that they can see that the money that they spend on commission is money well spent because they will end up netting more afterwards. And you've got the numbers and the track record to prove it.
Well, you're never going to net more for anything most of the time when you're waiting for something to happen. It's passive and aggressive. When you're a for sale by owner, you get on your website, you put your sign, you take these pictures and all of that, and then you're basically sitting and waiting. Now, we know there are some agents, but they're not the top producers that do that. If you do your job and interview right, you're going to get an aggressive agent. And when that deal fell apart, that for sale by owner would be waiting and maybe a week to resurrect more action on the property. When you have an aggressive agent, they're on the phone and they're doing everything they can to sell those agents and writing another offer. So when you're a for sale by owner, after you've set all this up, it's a waiting game, and that doesn't work. When you have a top agent, they're aggressive, and they're aggressive in trying to get you top dollar and look after you. And after commission, they're going to net you more than you will on your own. It's not about selling on your own. It's about reducing your liability, putting the most amount of money in your pocket, getting the right terms, getting the right possession. And private sellers aren't very successful in doing that.
Your website is a great resource. I mentioned it, of course, I want to mention it again, www.irvsells.ca, a complete listing of how to do, what not to do, what to look for, the questions people should be asking when they're interviewing an agent, all of those things. Also, this series of programs that we do on YouTube, and we say hello to everyone that is joining us on YouTube and watching them as well. Just do a search under Irv Tremblay, and you will find it there. You can also give Irv a call. Not a problem. The number is 790-3753. That's 790-3753. Irv, as always, great chatting with you.
Thanks for having me on the show, Dave.
Your chance to turn the key. You've been listening to Inside Real Estate with Irv Tremblay from Century 21.
On Newstalk 980.